to call to order the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission for our regular meeting for May 13th, 2024. Good to see each and every one of you here. I'd like for everyone to please stand for our prayer and pledge of allegiance presented this evening by Commissioner Charlotte P. Commissioner.
Shall we pray? Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come together and do the county's business and your will. Be with the Sullivan family in this challenging time and with all those with flood damage or in need. Be with those in authority that they may come to you for your wisdom. Be with those that are put themselves in harm's way for our safety and our freedoms. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge of allegiance to
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Secretary, may I have the roll call and determination of quorum.
Jim Aberwater. Here. Jeff Phillips. Present. Mike Cush. Present. Lee Bogle. Here. Charlotte P. Here. Trey Gooch. Here. David Jones. Here. Chip Pinion. Marvin Whitworth. Jim Thompson. Here. Pettis Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Do have a determination of our quorum. We'll now have the approval of our minutes from April 22nd, 2024 by Vice Chairman Lee Bogle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed the minutes of that April 22nd meeting, and they are correct, and therefore I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Have the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Our minutes have been approved. Moving now for public comment period. Mr. DeMasi, do we have anyone?
No, sir. Nobody signed up.
We have no one has signed up for public comment. Now, items withdrawn or deferred?
No, sir. None.
Right. Moving then into our new business. Item 7A, rezoning, zoning ordinance amendment request. All rezoning, zoning ordinance amendments requests will be considered at the June 13th, 2024 Board of Commissioners meeting unless deferred or withdrawn by the Planning Commission or the applicant. Moving into item 1, Laws Bouldin from WB Real Estate Partners, REZ 23013, location 6902, 6932 Shores Road, Commissioner District 9, Joshua James. Size of site is approximately 15 acres, tax map 95 parcels, 10 and 10.00. Existing zoning is residential median density. Proposed zoning is light industrial. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. As you stated, the applicant would like to zone these properties from RM to light industrial for the use of warehousing type uses. Both facilities are going to house sales, service, and distribution companies that, according to the applicant, will have very little vehicle and truck traffic. The applicant has included a concept plan. We've included that with your agenda packets. Of course, this is not a plan development, so this concept plan is not binding, but it should give you an idea of the direction they'd like to go. Each building contains about 50,000 square feet of office and warehouse space with on-site truck and vehicle parking. The concept plan, of course, since this is along Shores Road, shows its access onto that road. They're not showing traffic improvements at this time, but at the time when I wrote these comments, the traffic study had not been submitted. It has since been submitted last week for our review. This is nothing that we could condition upon approval, since this is not a planned development as far as any traffic improvements, but it is something I think that when Mike and I discussed it with Mr. Huddleston, who prepared the traffic study, that we would look more closely at, as well as if this is approved and makes it to a site plan. So our main concerns, of course, are the condition of Shores Road to accommodate larger truck traffic, and also the possibility of any improvements of Shores Road and Almoville Road. Now, obviously, if any improvements are to be made to that road at that intersection, we'd have to involve the state, since Almoville Road is a state road at that location. Of course, should this be approved, they would be required to submit an engineered site plan for Planning Commission review prior to any improvements on the property beginning. Properties zoned light industrial also considered high impact and are required to install a type 3 buffer adjacent to any residentially zoned properties. Existing plantings can be used to help satisfy that buffer. Of course, this would have to demonstrate compliance with our landscaping and screening regulations on a site plan, again, should this application be approved. We had some discussions with the applicant, Mr. Bouldin, about this, about possible buffers along 840. He did say that they are willing to put some covenant restrictions onto the deed, requiring a little more landscape buffering along 840 or even along the frontage of Shores Road. I imagine Mr. Bouldin will have some more comments about that during the public comments, and our performance standards would have to be met as well. These properties are located close to the Almaville Road interchange along 840. They're also within the Almaville Employment Center, which does contemplate these kind of uses. Again, I'll just reiterate our concerns are for the traffic improvements that may be necessary on Shores Road and also that intersection at Shores and Almaville Road. With that understanding, we did recommend approval of this application. The applicant is present and will be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner P.
Warehouses for trucks, correct?
Correct.
Large trucks?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's close to 840, but where would it come off 840? It doesn't look like the interchange is close by. I mean, Shores Road?
Yeah, Mike will
there's not
bring it up here.
Is there an exit there? It goes under?
Yeah, there's an exit if you go over just a little further there. There you go.
Yeah, Shores Road comes out, ties into Almaville Road, which State Route 102, and then you've got 840 just above it. And I highlighted the wrong property earlier. I think it's one parcel to the east. I believe it's these two parcels here.
That's correct.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug or Mike, with the geometry of that road, is it conducive to truck traffic or heavy truck traffic in those curves? I'm thinking of entering and exiting vehicles if two semis could meet or whatever class vehicle they're looking at. And then also the other part, you can answer that if you want to. So,
well, I mean, that I think goes back to, if this were to be approved, we would want to see, that we did get the traffic study, but, obviously we're going to be looking at things like the horizontal, vertical alignment and things like that to make sure that, to your point, we don't want to see two trucks meet up and one has to, who has to move, kind of a situation.
Okay. The other part of that, the commercial general that's to the east of that site,
Yes,
is
correct.
that the one that's the equipment storage
Yes.
that we looked at some time ago?
Yes,
Yeah, Utility Boring Company, I think.
I think that's right.
Could you refresh me? Did that one come before us as a light industrial application?
I
It
don't
went to
think so. I
commercial?
think that came as commercial general, if I remember right.
Okay.
Now it's been, I've
little
slept
bit of
since
time,
then.
I
But,
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm
right,
pretty
right.
sure I'm sure that, I want to say they didn't come as industrial.
It seems
to
like I
begin with.
remember that
Yeah.
as well. Okay, thank you.
Just one other thing, we may or may not have to abandon right-of-way in front of the property. I think this is old Shores Road remnant right-of-way that we'll have to get at the Highway Department to do a waiver of damages with all the surrounding property owners to see if they're okay with giving up that right-of-way.
Commissioners, other questions? If not, we'll ask that the applicant come forward this time. Good evening, sir.
Representing Mr. Laws Bouldin regarding this project. And as far as, just a brief overview, Mr. Bill Huddleston's here as well. As far as specifics on traffic, he's the one who performed the traffic study, so he can probably get you some answers on some alignment issues potentially. The only thing I want to bring to your attention is, as was mentioned, these are kind of light manufacturing buildings. They're going to be probably metal in nature. Doug mentioned they're about 50,000 square feet, expandable, probably another 20,000 square feet, so really 50 to 70 as far as total build out. The sites have some really favorable soils conditions on the basically on the northeastern corner of the property, so we feel confident from a soil standpoint that we can take care of these from a septic capacity standpoint. We do want to have a shared access point for both the facilities, so it minimizes the amount of ingress and egress off of shores as far as having 2 access points. And Mr. Bouldin was very committed to making sure that there was a really strong buffer along shores lane. So our concept drawing does suggest that we implement some new landscaping along shores to kind of screen the buildings from shores. And as far as the property lines, we'd like to keep as much of the existing material as possible to preserve those natural buffers, and we'll augment those as needed. Other than that, that's really the scope of the project. Two individual buildings kind of with a shared access point. The orientation is kind of interesting because we'd like to kind of keep as much as we can. The clients that Mr. Bouldin's been speaking with would like to have some kind of a potential presentation from 840. So there's a suggestion that there's a kind of a front component to the buildings on facing the interstate, so that we'll see if that can be accomplished with the existing vegetation. But that's one of the goals with the orientation of the buildings. Other than that, I'm available for any questions you may have specifically about the site plan, or Mr. Huddleston can speak to you about the traffic.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug, is your buffer concern more about the protection of visibility on 840 or the Shores roadside?
Well, it's a little of both. I remember the zoning application that Lee was discussing a moment ago. There was some concern, I remember when that came up, about some buffer area around 840. So that was kind of playing in my mind when I first was talking to him about this. Usually we don't require a whole lot of buffering along the frontages of property. Just because, for reasons of visibility and whatnot. So from that standpoint, it was just something that Mr. Bouldin and I discussed. He'd be willing to go above and beyond what we would normally require, a little extra landscaping on the front, maybe some building treatments like Clyde was talking about. So it was really just to help protect those corridors, both of those. So I would say that, I didn't necessarily favor one over the other.
Mr. P.?
Mike, can you go back to where it comes off, the exit off 840? Yes. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but your plan is for 18-wheeler trucks, large trucks, to go in and out of this, correct?
Yes.
When the picture comes up. Technology is great when it works. I'm not sure this is an ideal spot for this. I mean, it's not, it's close to 840, but the exit isn't close to 840. And the curves in that road, as Commissioner Bogle said, that it is, if you look at those curves, you got 2 18-wheelers going back and forth. I'm not sure that's the ideal spot for this plan.
Bill, do you have any response on that, if you would? We have a traffic engineer here, much better spoken than myself.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Reed, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Bill Huddleston with Huddleston-Steele Engineering. The traffic, and particularly the truck traffic, is one of the first things that county staff brought up. Wanted to make sure that we were taking care of that. One of the businesses reports 2 delivery trucks entering and exiting each day. The other one is reporting 19 trucks entering and exiting each week, so that's about 4 a day, so the total is about 6 a day. If we're approved tonight, which hopefully we will be preparing detailed site plans for you to bring back to Planning Commission. And in preparation for that, I will be proposing that we go out there on site with Mike and Doug and also with the County Road Superintendent, Mr. Brooks, and make sure that the road roadway provides adequate space, both horizontally and vertically, to provide for those tractor-trailers that we anticipate will be serving these developments. We'll be putting truck templates on the curves and on the turns so that we'll be able to make sure that that geometry will work for truck traffic. Be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner?
And with that volume of trucks per day, I guess, I know you've looked at it structurally initially to see if it'll hold up, which I was picturing in my mind a whole lot more
Right.
heavy trucks than average six a day.
Yeah, we should be in good shape there.
Bill, I got a question on traffic, and I've heard this traffic study the year I've been up here. The biggest issue that I'm seeing, and I made a comment to the chairman this afternoon, coming into Murfreesboro earlier today, I had a reason to bypass the school district out there at Rockville. And in doing so, I came down Jurgen Road. There's a subdivision there that it was some actual planning that took place. They built a turn lane all the way across this development. And to me, that was an eye-opener for me. I back up to Rucker Lane, going from 96 over to Veterans. I get to see Publix tractors and trailers come down that two-lane road daily. Why they come that way and not going down to Veterans, I have no idea. But the road base is not supporting of that traffic. You can actually see the road caving off to the right-hand side if you're leaving 96. It's a mess. I think we all know 840 is going to develop out in time, and this is kind of businesses, no doubt, that's going to want to locate next to the interchange. But the real issue for me is planning, is how to deal with that traffic as we continue to grow. We don't have any real plan in place that says we're going to take that traffic from 840 to this location. Until we start making the decision that we're going to make these roads with a base to handle traffic, not the traffic count. We can talk about traffic count. I'm done talking about traffic counts, because traffic counts don't work on these rural roads that I drive on. The rural roads I drive on, the base is not capable of handling tractor trailers. Now, I've got camera sites over on Highway 269, and if you go back 2 years ago and look at the traffic that you're seeing with tractor trailers today, we're getting a lot more use with tractor trailers on these old country roads than we've ever had. So I think the location is right for what's looking at doing next to the interchange. I'm just not too sure about the traffic. So when you come back, I'm going to be interested in what we're going to do to get the ideas of traffic and how the road, not the traffic count, but the condition of these county roads. We got to look at that.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a
Mr.
brief, Mayor, Chairman Reed, just a brief piece of history. The project to the north of 840 on Ocala Road is called South Haven, and during its development, early stages of its development, that road failed. Ocala just crumbled, and we required that the developer rebuild that entire section of Ocala Road all the way back to the new end. So that's something that we watched through the development phase and construction phase. It didn't hold up to the heavy construction traffic, the concrete trucks, the lumber packages, and all that. So, but yes, part of our site plan review and through the development on the early stages, we will be keeping a sharp eye on this.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now go into our public comment time. And when we do that, just a reminder to individuals who like to come up and express their opinion, either for or against, you'll have exactly 3 minutes. And you'll notice on the podium up here, you'll see green, yellow, and red. And red means the same thing out here on the street. It means stop. And when that comes up, it's time for you to stop. You'll have 3 minutes, and you'll have time to express yourself at that time. So I'll open the public comment period at this time, and anybody that would like to come forward at this time we ask that you come forward now. Not seeing a mad rush up here, I'll just close the comment period. Commissioners? Commissioner Bogle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug, I want to ask something else that's related to this site, but it's something that I think one of our former planning commissioners and county commissioners has brought up before, and it's the billboard issue. If this goes from residential medium density to a light industrial, is there any way to preserve the corridor to prevent the billboards?
Well,
or
actually,
how does that go?
Yeah, well, the way that our zoning ordinance is written right now, billboards are only allowed along I-24, and they have to meet certain criteria as far as distance and everything. Now, the reason we had it that way was because at the time when we did the ordinance, 24 was the only interstate. When 840 went from a state route to an interstate, we just didn't change it. So it's still only allowed on I-24. So to answer your question, if it's in the county at least, now I think there are some billboards along 840, but that was our city annexed property. So the way our ordinance for the sign ordinance in Chapter 12 is written, it's only allowed on I-24. So we wouldn't allow any on 840.
Okay, that's why I just know that was a topic of conversation a couple of years ago, and just would like to try to preserve that if possible.
We've never made an effort to try to change it in our zoning. We've just left it the way it was, since we didn't anticipate that being an interstate at the time, but since it's changed, but yeah, we just never. It'd be one thing if the ordinance said any interstate, but it specifically says I-24.
Okay.
So, and we just left it that way.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer your question, Lee, is right in front of the property, you're looking at a little bit under 20 foot wide from edge of white line to edge of white line. So it's a little under our standard county section. In the curves, it does widen out a little bit. You've got, I think I saw 22 feet, 24 feet in a wider section of the curves. So closer to Almoville Road, it gets a little bit wider. But right in front of the site, it's a little bit narrow.
It did look like that in the aerial you brought up. The curves had a little bit more generous
Yes.
pavement. But do we have enough right-of-way if improvements are required under the traffic? What was the right-of-way through there? I can't remember. 50 foot?
I believe in the, yeah, let me go back to the staff report real quick. No, wait a minute. I think it said 50, yeah. Well, according to the road book, it was 30. But, I mean, we have, when you get closer to the interchange, you can see that it kind of widens out a bunch. But,
yeah, I thought I
but
read
we'll make sure that,
30,
as part of
yeah.
development, if there needed to be some more on their side, we can ask for that dedication.
Okay, I thought I remember in the text 30 or something popped into my head, so just, I know you all will cover that. Thank you.
Commissioners?
So Doug, just a quick checklist. Should we vote in an affirmative tonight? What Huddleston would come back with is a traffic study, the layout for the roadway. You would meet on site for traffic geometry, buffer, and what else am I missing?
Well, they'd have to do an engineered site plan too. Obviously for the buildings themselves. So it would all be kind of together at one package, I would think.
Okay, and I guess the big iffy question is, if the roadway, particularly that hinge point or that hard radius, it looks like there is enough right-of-way. Are we kind of in agreement that it looks like there's enough right-of-way to make that curve smoothed out and doable if need be?
You're talking the one closer to the as you're going
closest
west.
to 840.
I mean, just looking at the available right-of-way that's there based on our county's GIS, I do think that there is the ability to make improvements that are necessary if identified.
Okay, and just again, the who would bear the cost of that?
That would be to the developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. At this point, I would be willing to make a motion to approve based on staff comments.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Mr. P.
Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, but what condition is the road? I'm not worried about the road in front of the site, where I know they will do a great job in engineering the way in and out. My question are the turns in Shores Road between Amerville Road and the site, and meeting even 6 trucks a day in those turns. Those are substantial turns on a, small country road. I am familiar in meeting trucks on small country roads and almost being run off, which we have no control over them correcting those turns. How are those turns going to handle those trucks?
Well, I think that's part of what Mr. Huddleston was talking about when he was talking about the traffic study, was not just looking right in front, but looking at the conditions as you go down Shores Road to that intersection at Almaville Road. I mean, we would want them to look at that entire section.
Right. We could have them do a truck turning template for the main roads themselves to see how they're operating, passing each other.
Who will make that determination as to what the template shows? We do a template and then what?
Well, it's submitted with the site plan. You'll see it with the site plan. So, I mean, they show it on site. We show it coming and going out of the entrance, and we can show it in a tricky section of the road as well. So we can have them include that in the plan. So staff will review, but it'll be presented to this body for its final approval.
If that template shows, and with staff interpretation and guidance, that road needs improvement, what will happen to the motion to approve?
It will be up to this body to make that decision. If you feel that there are needed improvements, we can make recommendations, but also this body can make recommendations as well with the site plan approval.
So once again, I'm still trying to figure out what happens with the traffic study and the template. If we determine, the county determines that the template indicates that roads need to be improved, what happens to the motion?
Any improvements would have to be borne by the developer, not the county. Is that what you're going at?
So if staff and the county determines that the template indicates that road improvements need to be made, the motion to approve to light industrial could not be developed until the road improvements are there.
Yeah,
is that correct?
I think I see where you're going with this. The motion tonight is really just looking at the zoning of the property. Do you feel that it's appropriate for this property to be zoned in the manner to which they're asking for? If that is affirmative and it moves forward, then the next step would be at the site plan. That's where you would see it next, whenever a site plan came in. We may never see one. Who knows? I mean, that happens. We see zoning of property sometimes, and then things, for whatever reason, drop off. But if you feel that it's appropriate for the zoning that they're asking for, that's what this meeting is for. Now, when the site plan comes in, that's where the traffic study and everything we brought in. And if it doesn't, if what they're proposing isn't going to meet county standards, they would have to make those improvements in order to meet the county standards. At that point, if they said, well, we don't want to do these things because, for cost, whatever reason, then, well, it's not going to meet county requirements at that time. Then you have a site plan that doesn't meet the county requirements and what's in the zoning ordinance and whatnot, other regulations. That's when you would have to make a decision at that point whether or not to approve the site plan based on that. So this meeting, once the zoning is, if it's approved, then goes to the county commission's approved. Even if the traffic study comes back and they have to make improvements, the zoning doesn't change back to what it was. It doesn't revert.
I agree with all that. This piece of property along that interchange needs to be commercial or industrial, one or the other. But I just wanted to be real clear. The property is rezoned, but they can't develop it if the traffic study and conditions of the road indicate that they need to be improved. Can't be built on until that happens.
Correct.
Thank you.
As we get ready to vote, I can tell you, I'm going to support the piece of saying to approve this motion. But if Mike will put back up what he just showed, going back toward Amellville Road with the curve right there is good enough. If you want to get down on the highway side, Mike, on the shot you had before, we've got to address that. You get a tractor trailer that's broke down right there on the highway. Now we know we got multiple tractor trailers that's going to be coming in and out. We got to plan ahead for this. It's the right location, but we don't have the infrastructure there for the job. Right there, that's a prime example. There's no shoulder, truck can't get over. So anyhow, I'm going to prove it from my end, but I won't approve if we don't address this highway coming back.
Mr. Commissioner, for the same reason, I'm not going to support it, because I agree this area is commercial, and there are other commercial general, and residential medium in this area. I agree it will be commercial. I think light industrial with tractor trailer trucks going through is a little too heavy for this road. I am not as optimistic about the roads being changed. I'm more realistic about these curves and things.
Commissioners, we have a motion made to approve with a second. We'll move on into that. And Madam Secretary, I ask that you please call the roll.
Jim Averwater. Yes. Jeff Phillips.
Yes.
Mike Cush.
Yes.
Lee Bogle. Yes. Charlotte P. No. Trey Gooch. Yes. David Jones. Yes. Jim Thompson. Yes. Pettis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion does carry. We'll move into item 2. This one will be Huddleston-Steele Engineering for Jorge Lopez, REZ 21007. Location is Old Nashville Highway. Commissioner is Wayne Irwin. Size of site is approximately 18 acres, approximately 10.2 acres to be rezoned. Tax map is 70, parcels 1700, 1701, 1706, and 1707. Existing zoning is RM, Commercial Neighborhood CN, and Commercial General CG. Proposed zoning is 1.43 acres from RM to CN, 1.28 acres from CG to CN, and 6.5 acres from CG to planned unit development for a soccer facility. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And Commissioners, you've all seen this application several times in the past. Actually, Mr. Roundtree and I were kind of, and Mr. Chairman Reed were kind of joking before the meeting that, you know, it seems like every year this comes back up. This just automatically puts itself on the agenda. But you'll see that I'm not going to go through just a lot of the history here just because we have seen this so many times. But just for your information, this is the 7th time that we've had a public hearing on this application here at the Planning Commission. I've included kind of an overview. Again, I'm not going to go into just a whole lot of detail about it, as well as some of the minutes from the past meetings to let you know what some of those concerns were. I will say that between our last meeting where we considered this, which was March 13th of last year, there was a traffic study that was completed for that meeting. However, it was done on a day when there was only a 2-hour a 2-hour school day. So we asked them to go back and redo the traffic study when it was a full school day to kind of give a better indication of what the traffic was in that area. There was also some comments during that last meeting in March about the development phasing, turn lanes, and whatnot. Following that discussion, the Planning Commission did defer the application for those reasons. So it's back up before you today. It has changed changed. They are still wanting to do the soccer facility, but as Chairman Reed had stated at the very beginning, you see that they've kind of changed around the zoning of the property a little bit. They're taking out any commercial general property. There's 1.43 acres that is zoned RM right now. That was that existing house that was purchased by the applicant. They want to change that to commercial neighborhood. There's about, say, 8 acres or so of commercial general, different portions of the tracts that they are also zoning to commercial neighborhood. And then about 6.5, a little over 6.5 acres, they are looking to go from commercial general to planned unit development. Again, that is for the specific use of the the soccer facility. The plant development, again, for that purpose, they made a request back to the BZA for the outdoor fields back in February of 2021, although that was denied. That's why this is before you. The information in the applicant's pattern book, which has been updated, really hasn't changed much as far as the hours of operation or anything go. I will say that they do want to light one of the outdoor fields. That would be the one closest to the railroad tracks, furthest away from Old Nashville Highway. I think the biggest thing that's changed in this, and at the time when I wrote these comments, I didn't have this information, but a lot of the discussion we've had at the Planning Commission has been about the traffic improvements along Old Nashville Highway. You'll recall that the original plan was to build a right lane deceleration into the property and then have that operational for some time. Then before they would do phase 2, which would be the outdoor fields, phase 1 was actually the indoor facility, as you recall, that they would do a traffic study to find out if a left turn lane was warranted. That caused a lot of concern among staff, the Planning Commission, and a lot of discussion. Since that time, I've had some discussions with the applicant's representative, and they have committed to making all the traffic improvements in the first phase. So that would be the right decel lane as well as the left turn lane along Old Nashville Highway into the property. Again, this will all be part of phase 1. Now, I will point out in your pattern book that there is a diagram there showing the turn lane improvements. This is really more of a, I won't say conceptual plan for lack of a better word, but it's not an engineered plan. That will have to be constructed to AASHTO standards. There'll have to be a full engineering review. Mike's going to bring it up on the big screen here just for you to take a look at what we're talking about, this one right here. That's not an actual designed intersection with the turn lanes and everything. So the applicant's aware of that, and I just wanted to make sure that we were all aware of that as well. With that, I don't have just a whole lot of other comments that I have to make. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Roundtree is here representing the applicant, along with Mr. Chris McGuire, who's also been contributing to this project as well with Huddleston-Steele. So again, be happy to answer any questions. Oh, I will say one more thing before I turn it over. We did have a neighborhood meeting on this, actually at the neighboring Buddhist temple, probably about a month ago or so, prior to their application. And I think the folks that did show up, and they've been to these meetings and have submitted emails and things in the past, I think their main concern really was the traffic improvements. And when discussion was had that they were considering looking at all the traffic improvements on the first phase, I think they were more comfortable with that. And I don't think either one of them are here today. So I did want to make sure that everybody was aware that we did have a neighborhood meeting on this as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Just one quick follow-up. Just for reference, the new driveway into the soccer club is on the top of the page here, and I believe this is Reynolds Drive on the south. So each will be getting a left turn lane movement, and then the soccer club will also be getting a right turn movement, I guess, westbound right turn into the property, just for clarity.
Commissioners, questions for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Doug. Several different zonings here going, the PUD and a CN in here also. And I don't recall that we've ever seen that, and perhaps I can understand the phase 2 CN zoning remaining up close to the street, but this little narrow strip that runs right through the middle, what incentive would someone have to keep that or to even have that zoned as CN right between phases 1 and 3. I'm seeing that on their phasing plan.
Is that the one you're talking about right there on the screen?
Go to page 9.
Yes,
I think
yes, that page there.
Page 9 would probably give you. Shows all
Yeah,
the
that one shows it. Rezone 1.2 acres to CN, right? Little strip right down the middle. What would be a reason to have a different zoning on that than the surrounding land?
You're talking the, right to the north of that, or the?
This 1.28 acres.
Oh, you're talking back there, I'm sorry.
I think they're
okay.
adding that to the
Existing commercial
existing
neighborhood.
CN.
Yeah, that would just make the commercial neighborhood a little larger
So all of
zoned
this
area.
will be
Yeah.
CN back to this line here.
Yeah, that area is actually zoned commercial general now, so they would take it down from commercial general to commercial neighborhood. So it would just, the portion up front of it where it says currently, Mike, can you, yeah, right there. Currently CN, 7.1 acres to remain CN, that would just be an extension of the commercial neighborhood.
Gotcha, so just enlarging
Correct.
that area.
And
Yeah.
then this house site would
Be commercial
converted
neighborhood.
to CN as
So
well.
really, if this gets approved, what you're going to have is a planned development in the back, commercial neighborhood up front, about halfway through the property. That's kind of where it's kind of bisecting it there. That's kind of the break point.
Gotcha, thank you. That's a lot more clear.
Other questions for the staff? If not, we'll ask that the applicant come forward this time. Yes, sir.
Commissioners, Clyde Rounder, Huddleston-Steele Engineering. That's a great question. Really, through the process of working with the owner and our team, we just wanted to kind of clean it up, you know, rather than come back and have Miss Lori's house that was part of this process. Mr. Lopez was able to acquire the home. We, you know, we're kind of like, well, we keep that zoned RM and have to come back again. At one time we had it a PUD, and we thought we'd have to come back again for that. And really, 7 times is wonderful. 8 times we're hoping we'll be done. But that was really it. It was really an effort to make sure there wasn't a little sliver of CG that we just kind of didn't think about. We really wanted the PUD to cover the requirements for the outdoor fields. The only thing we did from a site planning standpoint that is of note is we moved the building from the eastern portion of the property to the western portion of the property, and that's really to shield the lighting. The temple has had no problems with us lighting that field. They didn't have any opposition, but it was more of a concern from the commission. And we feel like by the shields on the fields already, it's up against the railroad track, and the fact that that building is a sizable building, it will give us basically a light screen, a light buffer. We feel like that's just a better proposition for the temple. Mr. Lopez has a great relationship with the temple. They share parking on occasions, and we want to continue that relationship. They hosted our neighborhood meeting. So that was something we wanted to make sure that we tried to respect as best possible to make sure we have no light intrusion on their property.
Questions? Okay, sir.
If this moves forward, I just want to say I appreciate your patience. Our client has been very patient as well. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move now to our public comments. I'll open it for public comments. Same thing goes here that we said in the last one. You have 3 minutes to come forward and voice your opinion either for or against. You can do so at this time. Nobody's given us the opportunity to use our little lights up there tonight. So at this time, I'll close public comment. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Have a motion to
Staff-
approve.
With staff comment.
We have a second over here. Other questions or comments? Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Jim Aberwater? Yes. Jeff Phillips?
Yes.
Mike Cush?
Yes.
Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P? Yes. Trey Gooch. David Jones. Jim Thompson. Pettis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion does carry. Moving now to item 3, which is zoning ordinance amendments, and I think I will let Mr. DeMasi take care of that one if he would.
Yes, sir, thank you. These ordinance amendments are to Chapter 14C, dealing with site plans regarding consistency with our soon-to-be updated county stormwater ordinance. The Stormwater Advisory Committee will consider and adopt an updated stormwater ordinance coming up here in about a week at their May 21st, 2024 meeting to comply with a new state rule and stormwater Phase 2 NPDES permit. We must update any other regulations that we have that reference that ordinance, which would include the zoning ordinance and also the subdivision regulations. The proposed amendments that are included with your agenda packets concern post-construction activities and stream buffers. Mike's got a copy of them that you can see. It's on your iPads as well, but he's got them on the big screen. These have to be adopted by September 1st in order for the county to stay in compliance with federal and state regulations. Really, these changes are what I would really term, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but more housekeeping in nature. You'll see that we're just changing wording really as to be less specific in some instances rather than calling out specifically the adopted manuals, but just saying the currently adopted stormwater BMP manuals. In the event we ever change that, we don't have to come through the zoning every time. Also, and Mike, you might want to go into a little bit more there on C as far as the rainfall frequency duration. I'm not going to pretend to understand what all that is, but really these changes are just to bring us into compliance with everything.
It's
Go
the
ahead.
standard NOAA rainfall and frequency duration curves that are called out to make sure we're all using the same information for our storms. But it's, pretty, like Doug said, just pretty rudimentary housekeeping measures to make sure everything, the site plan matches what we do in subdivisions and so on and so forth. So, and they do match the new ordinance regulations, the new verbiage that came down from TDEC.
I will say as well, we won't be considering these tonight, but we also have some amendments that need to be made to the county subdivision regulations. Those have to be advertised 30 days in advance at the Planning Commission meeting, so we will consider those at the next night meeting in June. So we're well on our way to being compliant with the adoption by the deadline date that we have. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mike, obviously, for all the work he put into this, but also our assistant county engineer, Sheila Huffmeyer, who's hiding in the back, as a matter of fact, at the meeting. She can wave a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So, but yeah, this was, I know they worked really hard, and their staff worked really hard putting this together, so I want to say, just special thanks to them.
I can't take any credit for it. It was all Sheila and Jonathan. Yeah, nothing from me.
But with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. We do have to have a public hearing on this. These are zoning ordinance amendments, so they will have to have a public hearing tonight and also before the county commission. But again, we're here for questions.
Commissioners, questions? Mr. Cush.
I was just asking if we need a motion to move these forward.
After the public hearing, yes, sir, we will.
So, thank you, Chair. Mike and Sheila, on page 1, paragraph CC, you refer to the maintenance agreement that is recorded with the Registered Deeds Office. I'm assuming, which is always dangerous, the maintenance agreement, does that talk about wet pond maintenance, structural BMPs, things like that?
Stormwater feature, we need a long-term maintenance agreement. Excuse me. Apparently, there was not verbiage requiring that for site plans. So this essentially is initiating that requirement for site plans, specific site plans, like we do in subdivisions all the time.
Okay. I have a general question. Based on the huge storm we had last week and driving around the day after, I saw water where I have not seen water ever. and it, it made me think about a lot of the projects this body has approved over the last several years, and it made me think about how Mike sits up there often and gets concerned about the karst geology, how water, we rely a lot on water to just disappear underground, and then a mile or two down the road will reappear. All kinds of thoughts like that ran through my head a few days ago. And also, what also hit me hard was the maintenance of detention ponds. Back in school and in my early career, they used to say, about every 7 years, a wet pond needed to be dredged out because its sediment builds up, you lose capacity. And then, I saw this, and I need to ask the question. Do we enforce, we as the county, do we enforce maintenance for ponds? Do we have a team that goes out and checks that?
Yes, we do. Sheila has a team of summer interns, apprentices or apprentice-high, that goes out and looks at stormwater detention ponds every year and looks at that. And they make a checklist of items that need to be repaired. If there's an issue with a particular pond, they will, Sheila and Jonathan will send a letter out saying, hey, your pond is not in compliance, you need to bring it into compliance, and they work with the property owner to help bring that back into compliance.
Does that also apply to wet ponds in subdivisions?
Yes.
Okay, so they have the ability to go set foot out on because does the detention pond, does it belong to us?
Usually, the way it's set up now, it belongs to the homeowners association.
Right.
And that long-term maintenance agreement, they sign. The developer typically is the one that signs because he's the HOA at the time.
Yeah.
Signs and it's a permission slip to say, yes, you have the right to come in and inspect my property as needed for routine maintenance.
Okay. So we do have the ability, and Sheila has a team that goes out and checks the ponds.
Yes, sir.
All over the county. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just, for information, I'm asking.
They're young. They're healthy.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of energy.
And if we send a letter, and if somebody wants to be non-compliant, what happens? Do they wind up in environmental court?
Might have to help me with that, but there's a step-by-step progression, and then it will eventually go to Nick and go to the courts if they do not follow these requirements. So we can haul them into court, and forgive me, I'm not using the proper legal terms, but yeah. All right. So there is a natural, well, not a natural, but a written progression of steps that if they don't comply with the steps, it goes to the next level. And here comes Sheila. She can.
So everybody can understand, if a detention pond that Huddleston-Steele or SEC designs comes before us,
yes,
and it's supposed to be 8 feet deep and hold X amount of gallons of water, well, 2 years later, that thing has silted up a foot, so you've lost a great deal of capacity.
Yes.
And the next year, it is silted up even more and collected trash that is sunk. So, I mean, it doesn't take long to lose capacity, and you get rainfalls like we saw last week. And now, the best that pond ever worked was the first day it was put in. So you have to have people to go out and check those depths, and they have to be drained and mucked out with the backhoe, and that sediment hauled off.
Yes.
Who knows where, and to get that back to its original status. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be fair.
And you have the ability to write a ticket or a warning or a storm. Right. You're the stormwater police.
So far, yes.
Right?
Yeah, I send out letters.
Okay. And do people ever say, hey, get off my property, I don't care,
Honestly, it's been very favorable.
Okay.
I think the first year I sent out probably, I don't know, about 20 letters, violation letters, and I don't send fines with those. I send them out as like a informational letter. It's a letter of violation, not a enforcement, I'm trying to think of the word, like fee or whatever, like I'm fining you. I send them a copy of their inspection report. I send them a letter of how to maintain a pond. I have a lot of education materials that go out with it. And usually a lot of the first year, I mean, I got probably immediately 9 or 10 calls. And they're like, okay, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? And, you know, do you want to come out here and take a look at it? So everybody was pretty favorable. There's like literally one church that I'm working with right now that's having a hard time getting in compliance. And I understand probably a financial,
Right.
you know, they work on volunteers, that kind of stuff. So I literally have one church that we haven't been able to bring into compliance, but I've been working with them. So so far it's been very positive. They've never been like, no. Most of them that I send out to subdivision-wise are under, I don't know if I can say, but PSMT, Gertner, whoever, like, I don't know all the names, but we look them up. All of those are registered with the state of Tennessee under their, there's a website you can find all of that. So you go under that, you look all that up, you can see exactly who maintains it. I send the letters and the information of violations straight to Gertner, PSMT, whoever the people may be, and then they will they'll contact me or they send me back something showing where they've completed all the work that we stated needed to be done. I've also had different places, truck stops and stuff like that. They contacted me, I met them out there, and then they did exactly what I asked them to do. So I haven't had a lot of pushback for people saying, no, they won't do it. And it's even stuff down to erosion. We mark it like if they've got a huge side bank erosion. We mark that too. Outlets that are grown over. We do give them credit for, like, most of them will do bush hogging like twice a year. So if we go out, say in July, and they're scheduled to do their bush hogging, say end of July, 1st of August, then they can send me an updated document or picture saying, hey, we've completed this.
Okay. So did I just hear you correctly that every pond that our consulting group has ever designed that we've ever looked at on a site plan, whether it's a wet pond or a dry pond or an underground, we've not seen any underground, but if it's underground storage, TDEC or somebody has logged that and it's on a GPS?
We've
and you
logged,
have a list of everything?
We do. Yes, we're required to do that per our permit. So we have everything that went in per our stormwater ordinance with the long-term maintenance agreements, so those plans from January 2011.
Okay.
And we have to report all that back in my annual report for stormwater. And we have to, per the new permit, we have to inspect all of those once every 5 years per the permit, required by the permittee, which is Rutherford County.
Wow, okay.
So that's a new requirement. We did all of them every year up until last year, every single one, which is like hundreds and hundreds, 300 or 400. We did each summer. Now we've, in compliance with our permit, we do all of them once every 5 years. So we're on a 4-year rotation, and the 5th year we catch up with all the rest of them.
So you think there's 300 or 400 on the list?
Oh, we have a lot. But there's a lot that came in before 2011, so we don't want to just ignore those. And I can't necessarily maybe go to enforcement with those, say, but I would send them a letter. I would work with them because we want all of them to function.
Yeah.
So if we have some older ones, I'll work with them. I'll be like, hey, we really need to get this to function, or if you're having problems. So there's kind of a break of when we put the ordinance in place. Okay. And when that piece came into play. But January 2011 was when the Stormwater Committee did that.
All right.
And a lot of it was just needed information. The property owners didn't understand how to maintain a pond, what needs to happen. And when she sends out the letter with the information, it's like, oh, I wasn't aware. You know, and they follow through.
Yeah. Thanks for the info.
Yeah. So far it's not going bad. But it may get to where we have to go back and start doing them every year, depending on how things go. But then, like, if we had from the previous year, we go back and re-inspect all the ones that had problems from the year before. But we'll be able to do more now that I have stormwater coordinator.
One last question for this body. Do you have a guess what an average cost might be to go back and rehabilitate A wet pond?
Oh, it can be thousands and thousands of
Like
dollars
20,
if they've
30,
not
40,
done it well.
$50,000 maybe?
It can be a lot. So now all of our ponds that go in, you guys will see coming through, we're always having, they look like a pond, and then they have little mini ponds in them. Those we call forebays, so it makes it a lot easier for them to do this maintenance. So they'll come in and they'll scoop out these forebays instead of having to muck out the entire ponds. So that's what those are for. They've made pond maintenance a lot better on everybody else. And so our process is that we don't accept all of these until years kind of down the road where we've got everything's done. They put the final topping on, and then we're going to take it over the road. Everybody takes it over, right? The county takes it over. They take over the roads. At that point, our guys go back out. They do a final punch. So it's had time to get all of the new home development done, which creates a lot of issues with sediment. So we've had all of that done. We've gotten all that cleaned up. They've gone back. They've mucked out the pond. So when you get 75% of your homes built, we go back and make sure that the ditches are good, all that stuff. So there's kind of like, yes, you've got that first development when everything's like, oh, everything looks good. And then you got the home builders come in and it looks like a bomb went off again. And then everything starts looking nice again. The houses get built, the yards get established, and then we go back, and then a year, maybe two down the road, we go back and we do a final punch. So it's not like it happens once. We have multiple years to make sure that when we release this to the HOA, it's in good shape. And we found that's the best thing to do to keep it, because by then, everything's stabilized. So you're not having all this sediment mucking coming in. Everything should be stabilized with grass, with permanent vegetation.
You'll still get sediment over the years, but
not like during home building and stuff like that.
during the long-term maintenance agreement establishment of that, we have the design engineer come up with a cost estimate for maintenance.
Yeah.
So they know, okay, well, mowing is going to cost this much per year, mucking it out every 5 years is going to cost this, and so they've got an estimate of the costs in that long-term maintenance agreement.
Yeah. So, and we are having the meeting, Doug said, the 21st at 6 p.m. And 225, what's that number? 205. So if you guys want to come to the Stormwater Committee meeting, you're welcome to come. We're going to be discussing new water quality volume changes. That's the biggest change per the new permit. The rest of the stuff is kind of good housekeeping. Mike said that we didn't require site plans to do long-term maintenance agreements, but technically in our stormwater ordinance, it required all developments to do it.
Yeah. So this makes it
this is just cleaning it up.
clear. Yeah.
I like things to be tidy. Any more questions? Nope, we're good.
Must have got them taken care of.
I think they're good.
All right. I think now we'll go into the public comments. Public comments are open. Don't see anybody back out there again. So we will close them. Commissioners? Motion approved. Second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, it has been approved. Staff reports and other business.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to say something on their other business. As we have been working on this in the past, we sort of got to a point and we stopped. But I want us to bring back in another study session flag lots, as we're talking about some of these other regulations dealing with other subdivisions and planning. I'd like to bring that back up. It caught to my attention after Wednesday night, as well as Wednesday. I was involved in some things like that. But I'm seeing with some of these flag lots, yes, they may be making those little lanes that are going to them 25 feet. But what the people are doing, they're only making them the width of maybe one truck, which is a dump truck of gravel down through there, and that's all you've got. Well, when you have tornadoes, you have storms, you have things like that, and you're trying to go through those lanes, trying to check on people, you've got other people coming out, and you're stuck right there. And we have fire equipment, we have ambulances, we have things of that type that are trying to get in there. They can't get in there. And now I've noticed that when we're looking at our auctions across the county, we're seeing a lot of land now that's being sold as flag lots. And that's the width of those lanes that are being put in there, 25 feet. And this is something I think we need to look at. We need to see if there's anything that we should be doing or requiring there. I know I went out on a pause situation on Wednesday, right before the storm, as the storm was coming. And I got on one of those little lanes, met a service truck coming. And we sat there sort of like a standoff in a Western, which one's going to go first? And one finally had to get in the yard, one got in the bushes, and we got by each other. And then I noticed there was 3 very nice houses sitting out there, back there, and there was no way to get to them or way to get out except one way in, one way out, and it was only for one vehicle. And if we're having these in the county like this is going to develop more and more into a problem. I agree that people are trying to find their privacy and get back this away, but when the time comes for help, when the time is needed to do something, it's not going to work, and it's very difficult. So I'd like for us to work that into some of these things we're discussing. We sort of stopped there when you were talking about the water. In that storm Wednesday night, I have a small weather station inside my house that's hooked outside. It's all digital, operational. I was standing there watching it and all of that tornado type wind and stuff. That was reading rain falling at 1 inch a minute is what we were getting out there. And if you don't believe that, I have a hand-dug well dug in the 1840s. They closed around the edges, put concrete on top of it. When I come out of the house after that rain, and I've got pictures of it here if y'all want to see it, I kept hearing a noise. I said, what's that noise? Well, the water, and I sat on a hilltop. The noise that was coming from the rest of the hilltop down there, the rain was coming, it wasn't falling, you couldn't follow all its path. That well was trying to fill up and it was running out of space for the water, and I kept hearing this bubbling. It sounded like you were boiling water, and I looked over at that well and water was bubbling out of that well. No more room in that well on top of a hilltop. That's how much water you were getting, and it's just like you were saying, Commissioner. These retaining ponds had retained all they could hold that night. We got almost 6 inches of rain out there. And on Thursday, I drove all over my district. If you tried to get through Eagleville, there were not places you were going. You just couldn't get there because the roads were covered. If not for water, it was trees as well in what we had there. So you're totally right. I can see that. And some of the developments that we had that had already started where they clear-cut those developments. Those retaining ponds are full of mud today. It washed and filled every one of them up with mud. And we can't keep having clear-cut developments out here. It don't work because that's what's going to happen to them. I think I've had my bit of preaching tonight, and it's not even Wednesday night. I'll stop right here. Any other business should be taken at this time? If not, we're adjourned.